This is TWiT. So, I wasn't going to buy this. I wasn't.
Uh-huh.
I really wasn't.
Sure.
I wasn't. I was hoping, frankly, for a Mac Pro.
Every story of yours starts this way.
I know. I wasn't going to buy it, but I was going to wait for the Mac Pro, but there's no sign of the Mac Pro. We don't know. I haven't heard a rumor.
They've made no promises other than in the future they will release a Mac Pro.
They said is not in 2017.
Yeah, they didn't even say 2018. They just said in the future.
Yeah.
Right.
So I thought, well, I haven't bought an iMac in several years. I had the 5K iMac, which I really liked.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, let's get the new iMac Pro. And then I saw it starts. This is the one you got, base model, 8 cores. How much RAM do you get?
16?
No, you get 32. I hope.
32 and a terabyte. Yeah, that's
and
it.
a terabyte storage.
I had 16 on my old 5K.
You get the Radeon Pro
so
Vega.
For me. $49.99.
$49.99.
Any car.
But
for
folks,
$49.99.
you also get something no one else can get.
Black Lightning.
A Black Lightning cable.
That
comes with it.
You also get, okay, everybody knows, here's Magic Trackpad, that's fine.
Yeah.
What if,
whoa,
it was in space gray instead?
Or what if the keyboard were in space gray? Or the mouse. Well, that's kind of almost black.
$5,000 peripherals here,
no,
folks.
that's not why you buy the iMac Pro. In fact, you shouldn't buy the iMac Pro if you have to ask. In my opinion, if you have to ask, should I get the iMac Pro? The answer is no.
My father-in-law asked me, he's in the market for a new iMac.
Everybody
Should I get that iMac Pro? It sounds good. And the answer is no, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Because it is really, first of all, the clock speed. Now, I spent a little more than you did. This is the Rene Ritchie model.
Yeah, you got suckered into the 10-core.
Rene said, well, if you're going to get 8-core, you might as well get the 10-core because it's got the faster clock speed, 3 gigahertz. It's an Intel Xeon W.
It is probably the sweet spot because one of the challenges with these processors is for single-core performance, you want that fast single core, and the 10 is a faster single core in turbo boost and all of those things. But it's also, you spent a couple thousand more bucks.
It was $8,000.
Yeah.
I got 64 gigs of RAM because I was told by both Alex Lindsay and Rene Ritchie, there's no point in getting 128 gigs unless you really know you need it.
Okay, yeah, that's
64
that's true.
is probably enough.
That's probably a lot.
Probably enough. I did get the higher video card, the Radeon Pro Vega 6416. One of the problems, of course, with all of Apple's devices is, but particularly with the video cards, they're not upgradable. And they aren't already, they're not like top of the line video cards.
That's right.
So
they're fitting them into the thermal balance of this system, which has got, more fan capacity than the old iMac Pro, iMac does, but still it's got to fit in there. And presumably, look, if this product exists, we know, and then we know there's a Mac Pro coming, then that makes us ask that question, what would be different about the Mac Pro other than the screen? It's got to be things like upgradable GPU. Yeah, absolutely.
Nevertheless, this is a fairly beefy GPU. We've been doing some work on here with Motion. This is a project to build our logo that Anthony Nielsen created that is normally an overnight thing. Actually, we turned on motion blur in Motion, which Anthony says I wouldn't even do that at all because it would never finish.
Yeah, because it adds like 16 more cycles.
Yeah, so it gave an estimate of about 30 minutes. Now it's up to an hour, probably because it went to sleep, so it stopped working.
Yeah.
But it's halfway done in about half an hour.
And that's the kind of stuff that benefits from the iMac Pro.
Exactly.
This has got 10 cores, and of course it's 20 virtual cores. Mine's got 16 virtual cores, 8 real cores, and that's the speed difference. If you use software that is properly multi-threaded, software that is going to use every single bit of processor core that's available, you want this system. If all the stuff you do just sits like a word processor or something, sits on a single core.
There are faster single-core iMacs.
Yeah, right.
This is not the fastest iMac for single-core performance.
Right, because what you're getting is you're giving up a little bit of single-core performance. Although the 10-core is pretty good. The 10-core is pretty fast as a single-core.
Right. I'm going to quit out. Well, actually, why quit out of Motion? One of the advantages of having 10 cores and 20 threads is you can do more than one thing. Yeah. So we're going to launch a game called that's very popular called Fortnite. It's a battle royale game. 100 people enter, one succeeds. And this is going to benefit in a couple of ways. It uses Metal, which is Apple's direct to the hardware graphics programming language. So it's going to benefit from that processor. And I'm going to do something that normally you really don't want to do, which is I'm going to, what is going on here? It's trying to sell me something.
Yeah, you want to go to the Battle Royale.
I went to the wrong one. That's right. I'm going to go to, let's go to the video settings and just let's see if we can really tax this thing. I'm going to set the quality to epic.
Epic, sure.
I'm going to set it to full screen, and I'm going to set it to, wait a minute, can we get a higher resolution? I want a higher, let's go, what is the native resolution? Is it 3840 by 2160? Something like that. That's the highest resolution the game will do. Epic 3D, epic view distance, epic shadows, epic anti-aliasing, epic textures, epic effects. I'm going to show the FPS so we can see what we're doing here. Now, how do you feel? Let's turn the settings up all the way on this game. And by the way, I've been playing it this way, which is nice. And I'm not very good at it. So I'll tell you what, let's play and I'm going to get killed right away, which will mean that it's going to continue to play following whoever kills me.
So this is an accurate rendition of you playing the game.
Yes. This is exactly what it looks like when I play Fortnite. I get killed right away. By the way, I didn't intentionally pick that character, but I'd like to stay that person. All right, let's see if we're going to... It's waiting for a server. This has a 10 gigabit Ethernet connection, which is kind of funny because...
There's a lot of high-end video stuff where your storage is just as fast as if it were local storage.
Yeah. You'd have to have a special switch and all that because
exactly.
We're gigabit, and it definitely. When they did a speed test on this during Mac Break Weekly, we were able to get to 1.3 gigabits, which is as fast as I've ever seen on any system in our facility. We have 10 gigabits, but. The Switch won't give you more than a gig. Are we playing the game now? Can you see it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I have to wait for the bus to come, and then it's going to drop me into the game. This guy up in front of me, what a doofus. Anyway, so we've maxed it out. It's running at 65 frames per second.
Yeah.
It could go faster. I took the limiter off, but 65 is smooth. Yeah. Especially considering I've maxed out everything.
Now, I think it's fair to say that if you're buying an iMac Pro, you're probably not doing it to play games, but you can.
Would it be a good gaming machine?
Well, if you're a PC gamer, no. But if you're somebody who needs this for other things and also want to play games on it would be okay.
Then it's okay.
Boot Camp works with it. Yeah. I installed Boot Camp on mine the other day. One of the security features of this system, it's got a whole secure boot system. One of the security features is it checks the operating systems to be signed, or it won't boot them by default.
Right.
And it supports the Windows 10 Creators Update, so it will actually look at Microsoft's signature and approve that too. So Apple's built in all the Boot Camp support, so you can reboot and play play a Steam game or whatever else you want in Windows. But again, this is not a gaming PC. This is an iMac for designers, creative pros, people like that. And
okay,
you may
but
also
I could play games on it.
Oh yeah, I'm totally going to play games on mine. And it's also for VR development. It's got VR support, which Macs haven't had before. You can plug in a few of the VR glasses, and you can actually start to build VR or edit VR stuff in Final Cut.
One thing I learned, you have to buy dongles for your cinema displays because notice there's no display port or even Thunderbolt 2 out of here. It's all Type-C Thunderbolt 3, and it's got four
Apple
USB.
generously put USB-A on the back, the classic USB ports.
At least I can use my USB-A stuff. You see,
and the USB-C.
There's also an SDXC card slot and an actual headphone jack, which is
that's a classic.
very generous. No lightning port, but you can always get a cable. You get one.
You get the black lightning.
You're set.
Right there.
That's all you need.
And then otherwise you go to Dongle Town. So if you want anything else, you can adapt it.
Welcome to Dongle Town.
Video,
so in order to run 3 displays, let's see how fast I can get killed here. In order to run 3 displays on here, two additional displays, I had to buy a Thunderbolt 2 to Thunderbolt 3 Type-C adapter.
Oh, because of your displays, right?
And then I have that's for the Thunderbolt cinema display. Then I have an LED cinema display which uses DisplayPort, so I had to use a DisplayPort adapter.
But if you bought a couple of
third party like
5K displays, you can plug them right in, and this will drive, I believe, 2 external
I killed myself.
5K displays.
I actually jumped off something and died.
Well, that's what we were going for.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, let's follow somebody else. Key changes is going to go running around. And you can see we're really getting nice frame rate, really good graphics. This is using metal, no slowdown. And best of all, I can switch back to my motion, and it's still rendering in the background there.
This isn't
pegging it.
It's a workstation, right? This is like any PC workstation. It's got enough power to do this stuff. The GPU is going to draw more power and generate more heat than the processor is. The fan doesn't spin up, really, in my experience. The fan is always running more or less, but it's really quiet. You basically can't hear it.
It's running now, and
what
you can't,
changes
it's
is
silent.
that the air blowing out the back of the computer gets hot.
It's pretty. Well, it would be nice. You could put your hands there if it's cold.
Yeah, just warm them up.
If you're getting a bomb cyclone,
You just stick them right
It's
under
very
there.
warm. This is the output. The intake is down here. It's warm, but it's silent. I mean,
Yeah,
you really
well, so
don't
there
hear
are two
it.
huge fans on the inside of that thing blowing out. It's all designed for the thermal capacity all the way up to the 14-core model, right? So it's got a lot of thermal capacity in an iMac.
And while I'm playing the game, I'm still got motion going in the background. I still got browsing going in the background.
Sure.
In fact, let me show you. As long as I'm here, we did a Blackmagic disk test, and this is, I don't know what you use for your speed. I'm not a big benchmark guy, but this is let's put it this way. Alex Lindsay said, "I've never seen anything peg the Blackmagic speed test."
So the way it works is Apple doesn't actually have an SSD in there. It's got 2 banks of NAND memory, 2 NAND memory chips, and then it's got an ARM processor called the T2, which is very much like an iPhone processor, and it does the security on the system. It's also the disk controller. It's the system controller. A lot of things that used to be separate chips are now just run by the T2, and so the T2 is the controller, and it stripes those 2 NAND banks.
It's amazing.
And they are fast.
And
They're
we're
really
still
fast.
running around in Fortnite while we're doing that. So 3 gigabytes, not gigabytes, gigabytes per second disk writes. Why are the reads slower than the writes? That's one thing that kind of puzzled me.
I think it's got to be, there's got to be a hardware limitation. I don't know. One of the funny things about SSD is we talked about how SSD so much faster than a spinning disk.
Right.
But SSD keeps getting faster.
Right.
Like the SSD tech keeps improving. This is so much faster than that first 5K iMac was.
It's amazing. I've never seen anything like it. And you know, the good news is, well, I guess the model I got had a terabyte. How big is your hard drive?
It's
is it
a terabyte SSD.
So I think they started at terabyte.
Yeah, that's where it starts. That's the base
You
model.
want a terabyte because you are going to want to put as many of your assets as possible internally.
Yeah, I had a 512 on my previous iMac, and it was
maxed
okay,
it out.
but I
You maxed it
had
out.
a RAID system that I would copy using gigabit Ethernet to get it off.
And it's
to have
nice.
the
We've
space.
got Thunderbolt 3 off of here, but I don't think, given the speed of the internal drive, I don't think you're going to get any kind of external that runs that
Yeah,
fast.
Thunderbolt 3, though, it can do speed when it needs to, and you can also do, we'll see in the
probably fast
future,
enough for data.
you know, it might be interesting to hang an eGPU off of there or something like that, which you should be able to do.
You could do, right.
So, but yeah, I think having the internal storage and having it be that fast is a real good thing.
Yeah,
on this
that's
system.
the thing that particularly blew me away. The screen is marginally better than the 5K iMac screen.
I believe
it's a P3 screen.
I believe it's the same screen that currently ships on the iMac.
Oh, okay.
Right. The original iMac didn't have the P3 color gamut. The
they all do now.
2014, but
Okay.
the 15, 16, 17 models all do.
That T2 thing is really interesting. That's an ARM chip.
Yes.
And it's in here as a coprocessor. We thought initially, is it going to be like...
There was a rumor about it like waking up and checking your email when the main processor was asleep.
That's not the case.
That's not it. It's taking the job of all these other chips that they've kind of like pulled off. It does security. It's encrypting everything on the disk.
That was one thing when we started it up. It starts with unlike any other Mac, File Vault's turned on by default.
Yeah, they want you to turn on File Vault because that means that it's encrypted using your user key as well as the hardware keys. And that means that there's no scenario where somebody could walk away with your computer or walk away with the RAM chips in it that are used as the SSD and get any data off.
But you get encryption for free even if you don't turn on File Vault. The T2 is encrypting the hard
It'll
drive.
encrypt it without your user key, which means that
But the
if
key
somebody
is on
walked
the
away with
computer.
your computer, they could read your data,
right.
but they couldn't take the chips out of it and read it. And it's there's no slowdown because because the T2 is the disk controller and it's doing the encryption on the fly, like on an iPhone or something like that. It just works. I hate to say it, but that's the advantage of having that very smart ARM processor running inside there to do all of these tasks.
It's pretty amazing. What else does
And
the T2?
Apple gets it for free because of the iPhone. Essentially, they're using their iPhone.
It's an iPhone chip.
Development. Yeah, exactly right.
So could I get Face ID on here or Touch ID at some point?
Face ID requires sensors. Touch ID, if there was an input device, you could because it's got the secure enclave in there.
It does.
It does. It does have that, but it's not using it for any of that. It probably has something to do with using Apple Pay. It's probably using that at some point. It is using the image signal processing that they use on the iPhone.
Let me show you this. That means you're going to get
your front-facing camera.
This has, of course, a 1080p.
Yeah, it's the best front-facing camera ever on an iMac.
You know, normally I would stop some of these, but what the hell? Let's just keep doing things. Let's launch a photo booth, and see the image. Now I'm going to come over here. It has it's recognizing faces, right?
Yeah, so it's not like Face ID or Windows Hello or something like that. They're not using it for that, but it is doing the thing that the iPhone does, that a lot of good cameras do, which is it knows you are a face in the frame.
So it
and
lights it for this.
It's gonna do the exposure and the white balance and everything else for your face.
It's lighting it for my face.
Yep.
So this is always a problem, especially with Jeff Jarvis, when he's got a very bright background. It will white balance and light for the background because it doesn't know this is a face. But because of the T2 chip, the Apple camera knows where my face is and is actually doing perfect lighting on my face.
Yeah.
This is blown out, but the white balance on my face is perfect. And the lighting on my face is perfect.
Yeah. That's
cool.
all running through the ARM chip that's on there, and then off into the system run by the Intel chip.
4 microphones, so they're obviously thinking, FaceTime or Skype,
well,
right?
and you can do the you can ask the lady on there. It's the first Mac that you can say hello, lady.
Hello, lady. You mean Siri?
Yeah, I mean Siri. Don't say her name or she appears.
Siri.
But yeah, it'll do that. It'll listen all. You can set it to listen all the time.
The T2's doing that.
And the T2's doing that.
So I could say, hey Shlomo, and it would.
Yeah, if you've got the setting turned on.
I turned it on. I didn't realize I could do that.
And because it's got the microphones, it's actually trying to get a pretty good read on your local audio.
I am going to turn off this disk speed test. You've seen it now, folks. You know that's what it can do. I don't want to thrash my hard drive, but that's pretty impressive. I'm not going to run Geekbench because you've all seen the Geekbench numbers. They're not going to be any different than anybody else has done.
No, bottom line is you want this system if you have an app or apps that are incredibly demanding and push the current system that you're using to the limit. It could be a Final Cut render or some other kind of video encode. Those are most of my tests with multi-core stuff. It's twice as fast as my original 4K iMac or 5K iMac, not the latest version, but the original. And so Final Cut, Logic. I use Isotope, which is a denoising program for audio. It's just, for the plugins that are multi-core, it is so much faster. It is shocking.
John says I have to go. Let's while we're playing this game, which by the way we're down to the last 13 players. You start with 100. Let me launch Safari, and we'll just go to fast.com, which is the Netflix speed test, just for fun, to see how fast. Remember, the Ethernet cable can go to 10 gigabits. We're just plugged into a 1 gigabit switch.
Yawn.
No one knows how we're getting 1.2 gigabits out of it, but that's a nice feeling.
Yeah, and for the 10 gigabit, you're basically on a high-end video setup where you need massive storage that is like locals.
And I love it that all this is going on while this game is going on in the background at the absolute max settings across the board. It's really remarkable.
Well, that's the other way that multi-core benefits you is if you've got no programs that will use more than one core, the system will still put them on separate cores.
It's smart enough to separate them
exactly right. So you could run 10 programs that swamp a core all at once.
Well, I'll show you real quickly.
1,000%.
We'll just run HTOP and just real quickly show you that it isn't maxing out any of the processors. Now, this unfortunately doesn't show you GPUs, but you see the 20 threads there. There's 10 processors. It's only really using 10 threads at this point, not all 20 threads, and none of them is even close to maxed out.
And realistically, the GPU is the thing that's going to be drawing the most power.
That's what's doing the game.
It's throwing off the most heat. I think it's the thing that Apple had to engineer the thermal stuff for more than the processor is that GPU.
But Fortnite's using a lot of processor, 219% of the processor using 8% of the RAM, but we still are only using 28 of the 64 gigs, which means I bought too much memory.
It's okay. Keep that headroom there. One of the funny things about Xeon processors is they don't have the media block that modern consumer Intel processors have to do video encoding, to do H.264 or H.265. But guess what? The GPU can do that. So Apple sends the video encodes to the GPU instead, and the video encodes are really fast. So
sounds like Apple's gotten pretty smart about this, because they make the whole system and the operating system. They can be fairly smart about how they use their hardware. You couldn't do that use the T2 unless the operating system knew about the T2.
That's their trick, right? Is they control the hardware, they control the software, and they happen to have been developing ARM chips for a while now for their mobile devices. So why not roll them into the Mac experience? And this is not going to be. I guess technically the MacBook Pro is the first Mac with an ARM chip because the touch bar is kind of driven by the T1. But something like this that's controlling the system and controlling the security of the disk and on boot, it feels to me like this is just the first, and in a few years, every Mac will have one of these little ARM buddies running in it, doing all that stuff.
It's pretty impressive. And it's an impressive price. This was as equipped $8,000.
It's a pro system, right? I mean, the pro. You'll know if you need it, and you'll know if it's worth it.
Is there anything that can be upgraded at all in here?
The RAM can be upgraded, but it needs to be by an authorized tech, whether it's an Apple Store or somebody else, because it does have just normal RAM modules in there, but you've got to pop off the screen in order to get to them.
What's interesting, and here's the iFixit teardown. We tried to get them on, but they were busy. But what's interesting is there's no controller on the RAM.
Yeah,
chip.
it's just bare NAND modules that are controlled by the T2.
Custom RAM.
And usually what that means is like, well, can you make a replacement for it? Probably in the next few years, somebody will figure out how to make a swappable replacement for the storage, because that always has happened in the Apple ecosystem, is that something comes out and it's custom Apple, it can never be duplicated, and then somebody will find a way.
Sure.
Probably down the road.
It should be actually fairly easy.
The only question is the security, if there's something very specific that makes it reject non-Apple memory, but it's just a plain old memory, so it should be doable.
They do that with Thunderbolt 3. I have a Kitio Thunderbolt 3 enclosure that's designed for Windows. Will not run on this. There is a hack that will turn off system protection.
Yeah, you got to turn off the system integrity protection stuff. Yeah,
SIP gets turned off, and I'm not going to do that.
Or they could write a signed kernel extension to do it, right? But
I feel like they could upgrade it. Kitio says, no, we have to make new hardware, so maybe it's in the firmware. Or
maybe so.
Yeah, maybe they can't change it. Nevertheless, you should be aware if you want to use Thunderbolt 3, you'll need a Thunderbolt 3 enclosure for Macintosh. It's approved for Macintosh. I wanted to see the end of this game. It's been very, very exciting, but I think we're not going to get to it. There are only 8 people left.
That could take a while because those are the best players.
They're the best. They're the top 8, the top 8%. But anyway.
Yeah, and this is a computer for the top, not even 8%, 1%. But like again, don't let your father-in-law buy one. Unless your father-in-law is a professional video editor.
Buy it if, which you may be. Only buy it if you know you need it. It's really, you're not even going to get the fastest Mac, depending on what you're doing.
If the Mac you're using now, it just is not fast enough for you in all of these ways, multi-core stuff, then that's what it's for.